Hello and welcome to episode 41 of the Tales of Sigmar podcast. As always, I'm your host Chalmers, and tonight I'm joined by the Kitbash champion, I would call him. It's Ricki Smith. Good evening, Ricki.
Good evening.
Thank you very much for coming on to the show.
I'm thrilled to be here, thank you.
It's been amazing seeing all of your hobby progress on Twitter. If you haven't seen it, Ricki is an amazing, I'd probably say visionary almost for creating your own armies in AOS and just kitbashing the whole AOS and probably some of the 40k range that you use as well.
I used to use most of the 40k range to make AOS stuff because I like tech and grime, but I'm now into Fantasy again, so it's working.
So I first saw your armies when you did I think you did Fire Elves, like a good few years ago. I think that was the first army I saw.
It was back in the days when we didn't really have elves for AOS, so I thought I'll do every elf as an army.
I remember you had Carnosaurs with elf riders, and then the chariots as well. They were almost Scourge Runner chariots, weren't they? But
yeah, so it was the Exalted Seeker Chariot, but with the Doomfire Warlocks horses pulling it, and the lovely lady from the Triumvirate of Iniad, I want to say I'm saying that right, from the Eldar range. Just a long flowing gown.
It is amazing. So talk us through what armies you have done, because I can remember quite a few, but I want to see whether I've kind of forgotten any.
We'll start with Age of Sigmar, because I've been doing hobby since I was 11, so that's going to be a longer list. But when Age of Sigmar started, I decided that everything was going to be a giant. Because there were no allegiance abilities or any real army building limits, everything was a giant. So I did my Jotun tribes, which were a Stonehorn as a giant, stone giant, Thundertusk as a lightning giant, a giant as a giant. Anything I could nick a war scroll for and make something giant-like out of, it was in the army. Then I shamed myself by doing Stormcast because they had lots of new kits. They were shiny new sculpts. They were the first proper Age of Sigmar kits that didn't have a lot of flesh to do. Not a huge fan of doing flesh. So there was nothing fleshy on them. They were all in helmets to start with. So straight into Stormcast. Didn't really suit me in terms of play. It might have been because they were all in armor. There was no individual personality there. And the reason I convert a lot is I love a lot of personality in my army. And it was really hard to find that with a Stormcast. After them, I started doing a sort of Empire-ish army. There wasn't a lot about Free Cities then because we hadn't quite got what would become the Cities of Sigmar, or before that, the Firestorm campaign cities. There were sort of humans in the realms, but we weren't quite sure how they looked or what they did.
Kind of like Grand Alliance order book that still had all the Empire, basically what they were from the fantasy times.
And very loose lore, and most of them live in Azir, and no one really does much with them. So I tried to do that, but without a strong concept of the army, it felt like a bits and pieces of disparate ranges. There was nothing cohesive about it. They were purple, and they were all purple, but there was nothing cohesive or that gave you an indication that they were something together. Then I did the Fire Elves because I started a narrative campaign in my local Games Workshop. I wrote like little allegiance abilities that were basically just renaming the Grand Alliance allegiance abilities back in the day, but you could take them for any army. So if you wanted a really fighty order army, you'd take the Destruction allegiance abilities, but they were called something along the lines of Ravagers or Barbarians. I'd made up all kinds of weird names for them. And I was using the Death allegiance ability, which was the 6s to ignore wounds, to reflect elves who, were all fiery. They resurrected, they sort of hid in the dust, so you struggled to shoot them through the heat haze.
So was that the first army that you kind of started creating your own rules for, per se?
I only tweaked Games Workshop rules for that one.
Right, okay.
So I renamed the Destruction Grand Alliance allegiance abilities, but every model in the army used an official, legitimate, appropriate war scroll and base size.
Okay.
I was trying to tease my Games Workshop store into liking custom units, but I got as far as, this doesn't quite look like the model that it is, but it's it's game legally on the right base, and
So I can still put it on the table without them whinging or complaining.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the narrative campaign was a lot of investment. I didn't want to try and derail it by being the person running it and also running custom rules.
Sure.
Just because it seemed like I was setting up my own. It would have been awesome, but it would have potentially caused some poor feeling and damaged the chance of narrative.
Yeah.
And that is Stormcast again for some reason. Not sure what it is. Deep down, I must have something I love about them, but I did the Anvils the second time, so originally I did Hammers of Sigmar, the gold and blue, but I did gold and red. And then I did Anvils because all black armor. I'd recently done Iron Hands Horus Heresy Force, so I had the paints already lined up.
Right, okay.
So it was kind of convenient. Which were fighting alongside my Fire Elves. So I desperately tried to wedge them narratively into the setting. It made sense to have something of the Order poster boys alongside them.
Yeah, fighting alongside them in the realm of fire and everything.
I wasn't too good on the naming side. It was Fire Elves in the realm of fire. And it was really specific on that point. But I mean, until I did my most recent, Midnight City Army, they were my biggest army going. I had every kind of elf scroll, the old Skycutter chariots, which got discontinued despite being the most Age of Sigmar unit I'd ever seen. Like a bird-pulled chariot. It was...
Yeah.
It was...
There's been some questionable discontinued items when, like you said, they look more like they were suited for AOS than any time in fantasy. They were
insane. I loved them, and the kit was beautiful. Lion chariots, loved those old lion chariots.
Yeah.
So everything that could be an elf or sort of looked like an elf was in there. I had Alarielle on foot as the Phoenix Queen, who was the embodiment of rebirth through fire. So sort of the life goddess, but a different aspect. So I mean, that was my big conversion army where I wanted the models to look unique, but I was okay with the rules being what they were. Yeah. I could find a war scroll for everything I wanted to imagine. After my Anvils, I sort of dabbled with various armies. So I did a sort of Nighthaunt army with Kurdros riding a giant spider. I did various little bits, but between projects I struggled to find something I engage with. So I'll pick up lots of little bits, and if I'm finishing a model and go, that needs this next unit to go with him because it makes the most sense that it will flow that way, I'll try and flow that way. Otherwise, I end up with just a shelf of various bits. So I had Grot Bag Scuttler Boat because I thought that might be me. It's not. I can't paint battle damage, not for the life of me. And trying to do grots with stolen ships without battle damage is a fantastic challenge.
Hard to do it. So probably before we go on, that was going to be one of my future questions. How do you kind of come up with the ideas of like these armies? Do you just literally start putting some random bits together to kind of see what you can create, or do you have an idea in your head from the offset of, right, this is what I kind of want to do, and then just take it from there?
It depends on the army. So if I'm in a particular slump, I will wander the exhibition at One World. Not lately, obviously, because it's shut, but I'll try and find a model that, without saying too artsy, speaks to me in some degree of way, or a bit of lore. So for the Fire Elves, I genuinely just think I was reading up about Action. I was like, what would the elves there be like? And I sort of had an idea, and I wandered around the exhibition at Warhammer World, and I saw the 40k Avatar of Cain, the lovely Forge World one that was just an immensely detailed kit. I was like, that's not a million miles away from... I mean, there's Cain in Age of Sigmar, well, to a degree. Dead Cain in Age of Sigmar, but he's sort of there. I was like, it's molten, it's fiery. I was like, Fire Elves, giant flame avatar. So I bought the model, and then it kind of just spiraled out of control that way.
I mean, seeing... I've not really got the creative kind of thinking of that way. I always just kind of go, right, okay, this is going to be my next army, and very much stick to the guidelines of I'm building an army of this allegiance. So seeing the things that you come up with it's just kind of mind blowing. I look at stuff and go, oh, I can see how you've put those together, but I would just never think about how you could like justify. Do you know what I mean? Like how you'd buy that kit and then go, right, okay, I'm going to cut it up and I'm going to put this on and do that, without having a kind of solid plan of this is how it's going to happen.
There's a lot of failures no one sees.
Right, okay.
So my Twitter profile is lovely and curated to kind of give the impression that every project is a success,
Right.
because no one gets to see the things I don't like. I tend to not worry too much. If I've wasted money on something, I've just grown the bits box. And I always refer to it as the infinite bits box because there's a lot of dead projects that have contributed to it. So I tried to do, I started my Deadhead Orcs, which were all going to be like massive overgrown orcs.
Right.
But I can't paint green I can paint green consistently. I can't paint orcs consistently. And whilst they can be minor variation because they're living things, the skin can look different. You can tell I forgot what I was doing midway through each orc when I do them. And so normal flesh I can do. So Caucasian flesh, I've practiced since I was like 11. I can get it there or thereabouts. It's passable. But orc flesh, even horse flesh is the worst thing for me. I cannot do a horse either. There's certain variations on flesh that I just can't get on with. So if I've spent ages converting this model and then I can't paint it, the army's dead on arrival. It goes into bits box, or eventually I give it away or I sell it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so there's been a fair few dead projects.
That's kind of a surprise because seeing your painting as well, it's not just the conversions that you come up with. Your painting is like up there as some of the best painting out there for like armies, and for you to say, "Oh, I can't paint this and I can't paint that," it's quite a surprise because when you see the kind of talking about like your Midnight City, for example, I mean that's a huge army that varies like from unit to unit. I mean it all looks cohesive, but every single unit is kind of completely different, and the painting is like spot on. So that for you to go, "Oh no, I can't paint this," and it just goes straight in the bit box, it is a surprise.
I have certain cheap painting tricks I do, and I do to what I consider a good quality. Cheap airbrush object sorts lighting, I love it. I've been told it looks cheap for an airbrush before, but it's a bit gimmicky, but on the table, and it looks right. So when you said obviously I'm a decent army painter, that's what I am. I'm an army painter. I'm not ever going to be a competition painter. So when someone goes online and they say, "I've spent 26 hours perfecting this man's right arm and his left breastplate," in 26 hours, I probably would have lost interest and started a new army. And that army may have already been given up by now. But if I can go, you know what, I'm going to knock out these 5 models tonight. I've converted them. I know what I want them to play like. I know the lore in my head. They're going to look good as a 5-man unit. I can justify it to myself.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, I mean, saying that you're an army painter isn't a knock on you at all because like the painting that you do looks amazing. But yeah, I think with the amount of time that you put into kind of converting every model, like you said, if you did then spend exactly the amount of time then painting it to that standard would you just wouldn't have any armies to do. But I mean, seeing your IDNF army that you're doing at the minute, and the speed that you're kind of painting that as well, it's kind of crap. I mean, I'm a quick painter, but you seem to be just lightning quick. What are the tips?
Airbrush and contrast.
Right, okay.
Just airbrush and contrast. So when contrast first came out, I was very nervous of them. When I know a trick, I'll keep doing that way. So I started airbrushing, and all my base coats were airbrush, and I get some nice smooth transitions, and I knew how to airbrush. And then contrast came out, and it's a great tool for brush painters, but I'd gotten lazy of my brush painting. I'd airbrushed for so long that I was afraid to try blending by brush when I knew I could knock it out in 5 minutes with an airbrush.
Sure.
I tried contrast on a couple of projects, but when I started making that, I was like, I want to try it. I've not seen a lot of people airbrush with contrast paints because it's a bit heavier on pigment. It reacts quite poorly to an airbrush. But I wanted to try and combine what I liked about airbrushing with the new contrast paints. And I've always been airbrushing glazes and shades when I would do like a big monster to do shadow in the skin.
Yeah.
So I did just grab the reds and started on the shell for a Leviathan. And was like, if this goes poorly, I can just prime it Grace here again. No one will ever know. No one's going to get to see this until I've checked it. I was like, the red actually goes on really smoothly. And it's a bright colour, which I don't tend to paint bright, including Midnight City, even though there were yellow and black. The yellow was quite a drab, more of a mustardy yellow. I avoid bright colours because I prime black, and it takes a lot of effort to work up to something bright.
Yeah, of course.
Meanwhile, if I'm doing an Olgan army, which was all clockwork and steam and coal, mustard and black really, I could get away with it. And that's usually what I mean by cheap tricks, that I know how far I can take a project and have it make sense in lore-wise and justify it to myself. Because even though I'm a massive overshare on Twitter, I must be able to justify the painting to myself more than to anyone else.
Okay, yeah. And I think that's for everyone, really. You've got to be happy with what you put out, and it's the kind of thing I say there's a lot of guys in the club where they kind of see what I do on a weekly, and they're like, how do you do it so quick? How do you do it? Like, and you just like, look, just take it and be happy with what you paint. Don't look at anyone else, and then once you're happy with it, then share it with everyone.
So you're comparing to how you did the last model. It's never...
Yeah.
So if everyone compared themselves to Golden Demon painters, no one would ever start painting.
Exactly.
It would be so defeating. I mean, sometimes I do. Sometimes I get sad. I was like, the Ever Chosen painting competition that came up, I was like, I'm doing that. I can paint reasonably. I love it. I'm going for this. I was like, oh no, they're proper painters. They're like masterclass painters, and I'm in the corner like, I made a unit and it's shining.
Well, we've got Graham Shirley in our Warlords group, who's a phenomenal painter and Golden Demon standard. So
there we go.
He puts something out, and then you're just like, oh, okay, I'll just stop painting for a couple of days.
I'll give it a week, then I'll share my stuff, and we'll just give that rest period.
Yeah, he just brings it down the club for his like army, and it's just like, yeah, this is what I've got. It's like, oh, cool. He's like, can you move that model? Like, when it's dead, it's like, I'm not touching it. I'm not going anywhere near it.
I'm not risking that. No.
Yeah. So when you kind of create an army, do you think about how you can? Because you said like when you did your Fire Elves, you kind of made sure that the models that you made could kind of fit with a current war scroll. Do you still do that now? I know that you create your own war scrolls, but do you do it with a dual purpose, that you go, right, I can create for a narrative purpose that I can create this war scroll and this is what the unit is, but if I'm taking it to a, like, I don't know, a Game of Thrones, or not Game of Thrones,
Throne of Skulls.
Throne of Skulls, thank you, or something like that, I can then make it that unit instead.
If it's for an existing army that GW provides a battle tome for, yes. So when I started my Midnight City, which was my Olgan Clockwork City, all humans, we were still about 8 months before Cities of Sigmar was announced. We didn't know that humans were coming, that there was going to be this big combined battle tome. And I made my Steamwalker out of the Iron Circle Forge World robot. It's a man strapped to a giant clunking metal harness with a steam generator behind him. There was no legitimate rule I was going to be able to use for that one. At the time, I was going to write a rule. It went through several iterations. Usually when I write, it goes, someone will say it's broken the first time. I will massively overcompensate. Then I realise I'll never field it in the massively weakened state, and then you end somewhere in the middle. And often when someone says it's broken, it's a gut reaction. Everyone's got an opinion, but it doesn't mean their opinion when I say it's broken is any more valid than you when you said it was okay when you wrote it.
Sure.
It's kind of collating that. But there was no war score for it. I saw the model. I was like, I could put a guy on that. That's the next evolution of steam tanks, is a man that can stand shoulder to shoulder with a tree lord and impale it with a pike. It's humanity at its best. So when I built it, it was on, I think it was about a 100mm round base, form base I had to hand. And then I decided, when Sigmar came out, it can be a steam tank. That will be the thing. He'll fire the pike a great distance, and that'll be the steam cannon. It'll have legitimate rules.
Yeah.
And I played it, and I was like, he doesn't feel like a steam tank because he looks like he should be beating you in combat, and his war scroll says, I can't really walk forwards too much, and I'm a cannon. So I then searched through all of the rules as a living city, and I'll make him the tree lord that he was originally designed to go shoulder to shoulder to. And Living City says you can take 1 in 4 Sylvaneth, so he lost that base again. Lovely scenic base went in the bin, and a new base got tacked on the bottom of him. I was like, I played it again. This feels about right. It's not got sweeping blows, but he's got a massive pike, and it does quite a bit of damage if it hits you, but it's not too great at hitting the best times because he's a little dude strapped to a giant metal harness.
Yeah.
So I tend to backtrack competitively rather than plan for it.
Right, okay. So
If
yeah,
I can find a scroll afterwards, I will, but I'm not compromising the model's plan in order to find a scroll that fits it.
no. Do you have a kind of group of people that outside of COVID and lockdown and everything that you'd normally kind of meet up with and play games with the kind of custom battletomes then, or?
I have 3 people, one of whom is my long-suffering other half.
Right. Okay.
Who they go through it. So I have a Stormcast player who is adamant that Stormcast desperately need fixing, but doesn't. So he'll happily play against custom rules, but he doesn't want to commit to writing any himself because he's waiting for the day that it gets fixed itself.
Yeah. And it's Stormcast, so that'll be coming at some point.
Yeah, it's definitely going to ban. It'll come round again. And I was always the mindset that whilst I love games like rules design, I would hate to be waiting around for models that I've lovingly made to feel usable.
Yeah.
So like I can if you want to play a game that's a proper game today, I've got a proper game army. Or if you want to play out a story, I've got mine it's the K Knight Ideneth. I can play them as Ideneth. There's a man on a shark, there's a dude on a turtle. It's quite self-explanatory. Or we can play it through with the custom ones and go, these are the ones that have, I'm not going to Broken Realms spoiler it, but they like Marathi a lot more than normal people.
Sure.
So I was like, we can do it either way. So with my latest army, I need an event army as well. So Ideneth I sort of planned to do both ways because I do want to do Throne of Skulls again when it reopens. I have so much fun at events that that's my primary source of game. So with 3 opponents, it can get quite, I don't want to say stale because that sounds really harsh to gaming, but you get quite a limited experience of what Sigmar can represent, especially when not everyone wants to invest in a new army every 2 weeks, that you can only beat a Stormcast player so many times before it's like kicking a puppy.
Yeah.
It's just, the joy goes.
Yeah.
So when I go to events, I had the joy of playing Steve Foot's Skaven at the beginning of the narrative weekend at Warhammer World. I want to say it's almost 2 years ago now. But we asked the judge, it was the day before the campaign, so it in no way impacted the campaign at all. But the Friday night scenario was like, is it right if we play a game on this table here? And we're both going to be using custom scrolls here, but we're both all right with each other doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they're like, what, go nuts. It's the night before, but you've also both converted near everything in your armies. You've got your scrolls ready with you. You've planned this. You even spoke to your opponent. They're fine with it. I was like, it's sort of an event day, but I'm getting to use custom stuff, and I really enjoyed that game. That's
cool. Yeah, I think having those opportunities to do that, and being able to, like you said, playing Steve's Clan Scryer is
it's insane,
bonkers. It's some of the bits that massive, the big ball that he's got. That's the warp. What's it
that
called?
shamed my Cogfort. I thought my Cogfort was big. Then his warp wheel was put on the table.
Yeah.
And the rough equivalence is his is a basketball and mine's a tennis ball next to it. And that's the rough difference in size.
Ridiculously big.
I'm just going to shuffle the Cogfort slightly further away and we'll say distance is causing the issue here.
Hope that the depth of field would make it look kind of similar.
I'll photograph from really close to the Cogfort and just far away from the warp wheel.
So do you prefer competitive or do you prefer narrative? I kind of assume narrative, but
I prefer a good game. So I can't build a list that is competitive. I can accidentally fall into a competitive list. So I loved the new Keeper Secrets models when they came out.
Yeah.
Built them. Turns out Locust was broken and so was Depravity. And I was like, I'm doing this. And to be fair, I ended up on the bottom half of the tables for the event I took them to, which I think I was the only Slanesh player in the lower half of the tables.
Right, okay.
So I like a competitive game. I like a close fought game. But to me, a competitive game is a close fought game. It's one that you were fighting for the whole way.
Yeah.
And I've done a few competitive games, which is where it was a far more talented player who hammered me through the floor.
Right.
And then that kind of game was like, it was a game in a competitive setting, but I don't think either of us felt it was that competitive because you can tell by the end of it, they're sort of pulling their punches. When you're kind of whimpering in the fetal position under the table and they're like, you're right down there. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just,
sometimes
it off.
When you're at those events and you're paying all that money and the last thing you want to do is just like get a non-game that's over in like 1 round, 2 rounds, and you're like, oh. Okay.
So usually I end up, by day 2, I'm on the bottom tables. And the bottom tables in any competitive event are the best tables to be on. Because you've all realised none of you are winning that that you're not winning the event. There is no way you're dragging yourselves back up again.
Yeah.
So you're just playing games and looking for a fun game, which is ultimately why I go to the event. I want to play more games. I don't want to beat the same armies over and over and over again. And obviously, where I come from quite a limited gamer pool, the first event I went to, I thought I was everything. I was like, I've conversed everything. I always win against my 3 opponents. I'm taking this. And it was a doubles event, and we ended up in the bottom 10 players. It was humbling.
The realization of, I remember my first one, which was Bristol Smash years ago. And I didn't really know what was going on. I was like, right, I'll just go along and see. And then it wasn't until I played, I can't remember who it was, game 1, and just went, oh, yeah, completely different kettle of fish than just playing against like your mate on a kitchen table.
I was worried to be a lot more official than it was, because I was reading up beforehand and watching all these YouTube videos of, I've got to measure exactly here and have like 14 measuring gauges on me just so I can do this. And I played the game like, we're actually just playing a game. I mean, he is pounding me through the floor, but we're having a chat, we're having a laugh whilst he's doing it. I was like, okay, there's not like a solemn handshake and no saying a word while he moves his models. Like, we're actually just playing the game. He's far better at it, but I'm learning, and arguably my models look better as they die. Because I know my dead pile is looking amazing right now.
What I'm assuming most of your opponents kind of just not taken back, but extremely praiseworthy when they see your army on the table. Like it must be a good feeling for them to play against an army of that quality, whatever one it is.
I'm model and Twitter confident. Gaming, not so much. So when someone comes over and compliments the army, I'm one of the most awkward people to try and interact with. So I think I occasionally come across as a bit rude. Was like, oh, it looks amazing. Like, cheers, yeah, thank you. And then it can lead to some awkward social encounters. I always appreciate it. And obviously, occasionally I get to go into the cabinet during lunchtime where obviously the top 10 armies go on with people vote. And I was like, if I go in there, I'm always taking photos. I know what my army looks like. There is no reason for me to take photos of my own army in a cabinet. But I do, because I like that the effort has been kind of noticed in that regard.
Yeah, of course it is. It's like you're at an event with so many people, and yours has been picked as one of the best looking armies there. So
plus, I'm not winning a gaming trophy, so the painting's all I can do for.
Do you kind of aim to go for painting trophies then, or is that just a kind of added caveat to going along?
I like trophies. I mean, anyone says they don't like trophies, they've not got a trophy. I like it. So I'm not. I am competitive, but I'm not good at being competitive. So I like winning something, but I can't set out to win something.
Right.
So painting awards, I love it if my army gets recognised because the way I've built it or painted it or conversed it came together really well. I like that recognition that it came together well, but I can't, like the Golden Demon paint discussion, I can't sit and paint a model going, this is coming to every event because I've created the best army and I'm going to go and take the best general award. Because I've got one model in my collection who's built out of the rogue trader who's got the sword peg leg. She's won 2 painting awards, and for that very reason she's not coming to events anymore, because she does well when she's in the cabinet and wins, but she's not new anymore, and I don't want to be trying to live off of one model and go, you know what, it's technically quite good and people like it, so I'm always going to just bring this model. I'm going to make a new one. I'm going to make something better. I'm going to take it. If it doesn't get in the cabinet, at least I've tried something new.
Yeah, 100%. Like, you're always trying to kind of, like you said, keep it fresh rather than 2 years down the line you're bringing the same model.
Just
and
living off
like,
that one model. No, it's going in the cabinet again. I'm going to win with
it. So what has been your favourite army that you've made? Like, I mean, for me personally, it's the Sun Eater Ogres that you did. Like, those models were amazing.
And the concept was good.
Yes.
The rules concept is still solid and it's still not been filled. My favourite project is almost always the next project, which sounds really corny and cheesy. I don't like repeating myself, so I'll start a project. So Sun Eater is a good example that I went in and Magma Dragon with a Fire Belly on top. I loved it. And I started working my way through. But as soon as you get to sort of building the battle line elements of an army, I'll build one or two, and then I'm like, you know what would be really good? A human empire with steam pipes. I'll finish this unit, and then the minute the army becomes a chore to do, I know that project is eventually going.
Sure.
So I love my Sun Eaters. I still think Sun Eaters, they were probably one of the first proper sets of rules I'd written. They filled a destruction niche which still is empty. They were priests. They were destruction priests who genuinely believed if you burn enough stuff, Gorka Mork is going to take notice and he's going to bless you. And so the bigger the fire you make, the more he's going to notice. So I had little tiny grots who screeched just really loudly into the sky to try and get Gorka Mork to take notice, because the ogre's voice is so deep they got confused with the roaring fires. Gorka Mork couldn't notice them. I was like, I can make little burning grots who are screaming. It's really good, and they're there because their shrill voices go through the roar of the fire when the big dudes don't. I was like, it was the first time I actually felt confident writing rules for something, and I did my other half a wood elf resurrection army at the same time. So there were rules for elves, and when you cut them, they bled thorns onto floors, and then plants grew up out of those thorns, and there was a whole lot going on. But Midnight City, the humans, are still my favourite army because I still think they're one of the better cities. Not to knock City of Sigmar book. I love the City of Sigmar book, and I believe it's Sam that wrote it. It is, without a doubt, my favourite battle tome that I haven't written. It's just a great book, but there's a certain level of joy when I was writing the battle tome for mine that my Sun Eater battle tome, I managed to get about 40 pages. And I was like, there's nothing more to tell. That story is done. I've told it. I think I'm good now. And Midnight, I'm still going back to and going, you know what, I could, in the future, I'll make this model. And that means I need another 4 or 5 pages of lore explaining how they got this far and what's happening now. And their story keeps ticking over. The fact I'm still coming back to it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I had a feeling the Midnight City was, because you've done, about 8,000 points of it, and the battle tome's already 70 pages long, which is, when I looked at it, I was like, yeah, it's got to be your favourite one. Like, to put that much effort and that much commitment into one army.
It's because humans contextualise the setting. So they started when we didn't really know where humans... We had Firestorm, so we knew there were cities. We had the Seeds of Hope campaign. People were there. But the idea of how a human forms a functional fighting army in a place where there are demigods and massive trees and orcs that are twice the size of the orcs we used to see in Warhammer Fantasy, trying to legitimize humanity as a fighting force in that kind of setting. It was a really fun way of sort of exploring what you can get away with tech-wise. And so that army's like half 40k models converted. And I got a lot of comments when I first started it saying, this isn't Age of Sigmar army, you're creating AdMech. Like, I'm using AdMech. I'm creating an Age of Sigmar army, but yeah. I'm using a lot of AdMech in this. But it was something I liked. And there's still there is an engineering city. Greywater technically exists. Who knows how much longer with Broken Realms going on, but it technically exists currently. But it's an artillery city. If you read the rules and the way the army builds, it is an artillery city. It is not an engineering city.
Yeah.
So you're in no way encouraged to take a diverse range of things and have wacky engineers at front leading the force, or you can put an engineer maybe in a steam tank. That would have been one way to go with it. I was like, I can do stuff with engineers that isn't catered for. And engineers then became weird science, and essentially it's a Frankenstein level of nothing is off the table in terms of making it, which then when you're converting things, nothing's off the table when you're making it.
No, seeing some of the bits on there are crazy, and like I said, kind of seeing some of the ideas that have kind of come to fruition is just like, where did you get the idea for that from? But everything is cohesive. Like you said, it's got that mechanical engineering feel to the whole army. And even
it's weird sciences.
Even using things like the Sisters of Battle, the scenery piece as a unit.
She's my goddess.
Like, that was like, what? Like,
it's really hard to find a non-Morathi, non-Alarial big lady for even 40k. There was I spent ages waiting for a kit to come out. And I was like, the statue, that's close enough. We can start now.
It. Yeah. So would you... do you want to be like a GW rules designer? Like, you've done so many rules and custom battletomes and things like that. Would you love to like get that opportunity, or is it more
I've
just
tried and failed.
Oh, right, okay.
So a few years ago, I came to Nottingham to try and apply for these jobs. I live in Nottingham now. I did a games design thing. It was just after I'd done the Sun Eater Ogres, so I was on like a rules writing high. I was loving it. I thought I was God. It was a rules writing time in my life. I did the interview, and it was. Even though I didn't get the job, I got to sit down, and Jervis Johnson had gone through the rules I'd written for Gutbusters at the time before they became more tribes.
Sure.
Part of it was you need to write rules for ogres, and we'll see how it goes. So I wrote it and that down, and there was a fair amount of sort of red pen and annotation on my submission. I was like, someone that actually knows what they're doing has genuinely sat down and read something I've written as though it was a genuine, serious submission. I was like, I got rejected. I got rejected by someone who was very good at his job.
Yeah. That is
so
cool.
I thought, if I didn't get it, I just need to practice. So I'm still practicing. It's been 3 years, but I'm still practicing.
And I'm assuming then, if an opportunity came up again, you'd apply like in an instant.
Even if I have to Highlander one of the team, if there can be only one, I will work my way through that team.
That is very cool. No, I mean, I'm sure it will be a matter of time, because some of the content that you put out is amazing. Like I said, that Midnight City book, it's got everything that you could imagine that you'd want to use, and I would just love it if GW went, yeah, can we use this as an extra supplement or things like that? And it becomes...
I want one throwaway reference. That's all I need. An army's marching to war, and they mention the word Midnight City somewhere, and I'll be made up for life. That's all I need. Just throw away the city's name somewhere in a book. I'm set.
And then you're set and you're happy. Do you read all the lore then that comes out like in every book?
I absorb everything I can. So I've not touched. If I, as a player, don't really care about the area, I don't touch it. So I know Catacross attacking the 8 points. I know the bullet points, what you can absorb online. Obviously, he's not an undefeated man, but I don't pick up the book in part because I really can't get infused about chaos. It's not something that really motivates me. Yeah. I love Slanesh models, but the rest of them motivate me. But any big setting defining me. So Broken Realms, I picked up Broken Realm Marathi, even though I had no intention of doing anything Daughters of Cain related, because it's a big story arc. Stuff's going down. It's obviously, we had the old pitch in early 40k in Old Fantasy. It's a setting, not a story.
Yeah.
So obviously things never progressed. You were stuck until 1 minute to midnight. Age of Sigmar is a story in a setting. It's like Broken Realms, the story is moving forwards, and you get on board, you learn what's happening, it's all shifting. And I'm so glad I picked it up, because the little bit about the Idnef in there, I was like, I never looked at his army before. It's not really something I can really. I tried painting an eel, it didn't agree with me. Like horses, don't know what it is. But I looked at that, I could do an army based on what they've said about the Idnef in this book that I bought just to read through.
And instead of the eels, you've used the Slanesh Seekers, haven't you?
I've used one Seeker, and then I've banged on Twitter for the past 3 weeks about the new Exalted Seekers coming out. Just really pushing those models of seahorses. Every time they announce them, I rename them seahorses and I repost it again.
Yeah, I didn't realise until they started doing the articles this week just how much bigger the Exalted Seekers were.
And there's a flow to them, and there's a movement. Yeah. They're really nice looking models.
I'm very much looking forward to adding to my Slanesh army in the coming weeks.
Seahorses.
Seahorses. So with the pre-orders coming up this weekend, is it just the seahorses that you're looking at, or
God, no. So I've started making crabs now, so I need the claws from the Slangors. So there's gonna be most of like 3 Slangors in my bits box, because I only need the claws off them, and I'm pretty sure they're not an optional part, which means they're just going to sit there until I figure out what we're going to do with those bits. I want the Myrmidesh Painbringers, I want to say. These shiny golden men on foot. They had like 90% Idnef as it is. So that'd be a head, weapon, shield swap, and I've got a war scroll written for slightly corrupted Achillean princes. They'll kill some stuff. and then I need lots of the Exalted Seekers, and I've already got the Eel Riders lined up to just bang on the top of them and get them going.
Very cool. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I mean, I'm doing them just as Slanesh, but yeah, the fact that you've already got them mocked out of, right, I'm doing this for this kit, this for this kit, this for this kit. So do you do that for almost every release that comes out? Do you look at it and go, what can I do with this model? Or
I'm trying to get more organised and prepared. So usually I'll make something and someone will ask me how I made it, and I'll have a sort of meltdown where I was in that sort of fugue state building it, and I know there's a lot of bits in it, but I'm not too sure what. And I'm trying to be a more productive member of the community now by going, here's what I intend to do. Because I figure if I spit enough ideas out there, even if I get bored midway through planning it, someone might see the idea and make it better than I could have imagined.
Sure.
So every time a new release comes out, I mean, every human release when I was doing Midnight City, I would just post up again and say exactly what it should be in Midnight City. Because Age of Sigmar's not had any human releases, I wanted to promote the idea of this range of diverse kits that could be a human Age of Sigmar kit. Which I don't know if anyone actually cares when I post it, but I like throwing ideas out there and seeing if anyone takes them.
Oh, I'm sure people do, because like I said, I mean, some people are just, all that they need is that little bit of inspiration, and they might even just like scroll through it on Twitter and it like not actively read it or kind of go, right, that's what I'm going to do, but it kind of gets embedded in their mind. I've had that a few times about, so I've seen stuff on Facebook and I'm like, oh, and then like I find 2 months down the line I'm like, oh, I could do that, and then I remember I saw it kind of way back when in somewhere completely different. And then
so I know I stole the seahorse idea. I have no idea who I stole it from.
Right.
And I have searched for him to credit him. But it's one of those, I was Twitter scrolling or I was Facebook scrolling one day, and I know I've seen Idoneth riding a legless seeker as a seahorse.
Right.
I have seen it, I've stolen it, and I really wish I could find the man to credit him, because, or woman, the person to credit them, purely because it was an awesome idea. And I stole it and people loved it. But that's not my idea. That is one of those that it was there. And I was like, when I first saw it, I thought nothing of it because I didn't do it in F. They didn't speak to me whatsoever. And then when I started, I was like, I tried Neil before, can't paint Neil. I saw a seahorse somewhere, and I think I have a seeker in my bits box. And turns out I've got everything in the bits box.
And then just escalated from there. So when you get ideas, do you write them down like straight away, or do you just kind of keep them stored in your head, or kind of?
I tweet them. If I can go back from my Twitter history, I'll find them again.
Right.
I'm not an organised person. I mean, I'm currently sat at my desk, and I've had to shove all the paint back a foot just so I can sit at the desk comfortably currently.
Right.
That's the level of organisation I'm currently at, and it's not going to change. I like to call it artistic, but I genuinely think it's mostly laziness. But if I have an idea, I'll either pursue it and the model will emerge almost immediately. So the Hermit Crab, I had an idea 2 days ago, roughly, of all the components I need. I'd thrown the idea about a few times of making crabs, but I had no idea I was going to do it. I just was kind of hoping someone else would inspire me. And when the actual idea came, I built most of it that night just to be sure the idea worked.
Yeah. And then it just, I've seen it today, you've kind of green stuffed it and it's almost ready to...
It's mostly there. Amazon Prime provide the shell quite quickly. They know my short attention span. It was built for someone like me.
Needs to be done straight away. So I'm assuming with Warhammer Quest Cursed City coming out, the Yeltsin Daruk Witch Hunter is probably going to turn up in a Midnight City.
He's basically made for it, and they may not admit it, but he's basically made for it. But he's the Age of Sigmar equivalent of the Blackstone Fortress. That sculpt, I mean, the game is the equivalent as well, but the sculpt quality we got with the Road Traders retinues in Blackstone Fortress, and sort of Warhammer Quest before that, but whilst I loved the game, the models now they're coming out, they're absolutely insane quality.
Yeah.
That is obviously a proper human Age of Sigmar kit that, assuming he doesn't get squatted like the Excelsior War Priest, is probably the first proper human for Age of Sigmar. And if that is an indication of the kind of quality human kits that could emerge eventually, it's a really good start.
It's going to be exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially as they've talked about like the Order of Azir that he was a part of. It's like, oh, could they be coming down the line? And like you get a whole entire army that's just the Order of Azir or something like that. But
With
yeah,
how grim he looks, like, because the Order of Azir, you imagine he's quite glistening, golden men in white flying robes.
yeah,
He is not a man who looks like he's built for comfort.
no,
He's quite a functional witch hunter there.
he's seen things.
Oh yes, it's a hard life on the road.
I can't wait for this box set. It's going to be fun. I mean, the new Kanofi model that got revealed today, that says to me at some point Kanofi's coming as well.
Every time I say there's too many elves, they release an elf that proves me wrong. So obviously that archer, I was like, we've got 2 waves of Lumineth, we've got Idnef, there's too many Fs out there. And then they showed the archer, like, we've got room for a few more elves. There's definitely artistic directions that can be explored still.
Yeah, it's exciting to see. I mean, they've kind of teased what some of the other heroes are going to be, but I think
even the villains, though.
Yeah.
I mean, the man with the spade is, if there was a death army like him, I would probably do a death army, because he is grim and it's like a visceral look to him that the previous old comical zombies don't really have. He's done the things that the witch hunter's seen.
Yeah,
it's that level.
Yeah, I 100% hope that in this box there's going to be new zombie sculpts, and those old ones.
The new skeleton sculpts were really good.
Yeah, those are absolutely stunning, and if they're in the box, like if they're going to be in kind of revealed for Soulblight Gravelords when they come out as well, then I think Death could just get almost like a brand new refresh.
It's that lease of life that it's classic with a twist, rather than Ossiarchs, which were brand new stylistically. If you like horror movies, what we've seen so far of Cursed City, it's that right vein.
Yeah, and apparently there's one big monster as well, like boss. So I can't wait to see what that is. It's going to be very cool. So when you talk about your Bix box, I'm assuming, even though you say it's kind of organised chaos, I'm assuming that you have a massive box just full of bits. Like, do you just buy lots of different kits and then clip it all off and then work out what you're using, or?
So if I want to make a conversion and I don't own the bits, I will buy the kit. Regardless if the conversion is one spear I need from the kit will get bought eventually. I have a very accommodating other half that really suffers through quite a lot of this. And so I have, an IKEA 16 cube unit, and I've got the boxes that go into it. And there's 6 of them that are full of, mostly on sprue, because GW worked against me in this regard, that if you don't have the numbers, the bits can be quite hard to work out who they're meant to go to.
Right, yeah.
You end up with like half a left thigh and a right shoulder pad on one bit, and it doesn't really work when you cut them off. So I've got the boxes are just loads to the brim of sprues, and every time I start a project, I organise those boxes. I was like, these are all really good for the project. These have some basic material I might like from them, and a week later, the boxes are all mixed up again. I'm not an organised person in that regard. And then I've got a drawer next to my desk where the bits I'm certain they're going to get used at some point are in there. So I've got the heads from the Blood Bowl Swift twins. I did Shadow Elves very briefly. They're great heads, each with half a mask on. I was like, that's definitely going to see a use. Most of Asterion Moloch, the Minotaur Forge World Chapter Master.
Yeah.
He looks good. I wanted a spear for a project, so I bought the spear. Well, I bought the model and the spear came with it. And he's in there. Even though he's not really Age of Sigmar, his armor's not a mile off. And it's like my favourite bits transition to the desk, and the rest live in what we call just the Infinite Bits box, which is most of a cube unit full of sprues.
Right, okay. And then you can kind of rummage around and go, ooh, I've got this now.
The rummaging is part of the joy there. That I'll start and I'll go with like, I'm definitely looking for an Idnef head. And the other time I did it, I pulled out the Spike Revenants. I was like, sort of Idnef. They just look a lot more vampiric and a little bit more evil. So I end up not putting the Idnef head on. I put the Spike Revenant head on because it looked close enough and it was a better concept. And that is the joy of the rummage through the Infinite Bits box. So you'll end up with something you weren't looking for, but it's probably better.
See, you'll probably say it's sacrilege, but normally I build a kit and then everything that's left just goes in the bin.
I do that with gyrocopters.
Right, okay.
It's the one kit I build as they're meant to be, and once you build a gyrocopter, you don't really need the rest of it.
Yeah.
So the rest goes in the bin, but there's such nice bits that you don't use that way.
It is, but like I said, I mean, for me, when I'm building an army, I'm very straight to the letter of I'm building the units as they are, and then when I've got
Do
the
you
left,
build to a list then? So you have a pre-written army before you
yeah,
buy?
a lot of the time, like, well, especially when we were doing tournaments, like I always just did a new army for a tournament, like almost
Yeah.
every single time there was a new tournament, right? I'll do a new army and I'll write a list, and that's it. I'm building towards it. Um, like now that we've not been doing it, I mean, I had a bit of a hobby break, and I came back and I've been doing my IDNF as well, and
Yeah.
I've got about 3,000 points now, so I've got a big mix. But again, I've not converted anything. It's literally build units of thralls, some eels, a turtle, like an eidolon, things like that. Um,
Tactical selections, but built as they
yeah, as they
are
come.
meant to be.
I think for me, like my main worry is that I'll start cutting up a kit and then don't actually know what I'm doing, if that makes sense. Like I'll kind of
Oh, I've been there a lot.
yeah, and like that's my worry. Is like, oh, I've just spent all that money and now it's just completely ruined. And I think the biggest thing I've ever done was I did Caradron Overlords, but as Orc Pirates for
Yeah.
Raw. Oh god, 2018 or 2019. Um, the problem was though I left it until like the week before, so it was all rushed. I mean, I converted a full like ironclad into a pirate ship. I used like the big orc stomper front faceplate thing, and used that as a
Yeah.
sail. And like everyone said it looked cool, but I look at it now and I'm like, I could have done that so much better. Like the paint job was awful, and some of it was just very rushed. But apart from that, yeah, I kind of build to the letter and to a list, and then that's normally about it.
And I've done so. If I do 40k, I try and do it that way because 40k players aren't really as accepting. It could just be the groups I played with, but they weren't really as accepting of conversions and the idea of custom and that kind of thing. So
Sure.
I built competitive. So I played Tau back when Tau were broken. I was that person.
Right.
There was a formation for just Riptides as an army. I did that one because I loved it. But I loved the models there. So a Tau model I can look at and go, there is nothing I would want to change on the Riptide model. I could comfortably build it for days. I could build multiples, and it looks. I'd have no imagination for 40k, so it looks the way it should look. When I hit Age of Sigmar, because there was so little to start with, I came in with a what can I make point of view rather than how can I make what they've shown us.
Yeah.
Which, whilst a lot of people hated Age of Sigmar 1 because it was quite loosey-goosey and quite funny rather than strict.
Yeah,
Words for it.
when it first launched.
Childish quite a lot because it was bigger mustache and ride the imaginary horse and all that kind of thing. There were bits there that you had to be sort of half cut to really enjoy. But that lack of rules let me hit it to start with as a game to create new things.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you've kind of got this hard set 40k universe with this is what it is, and then AOS was a brand new concept of there's no points, just do what you want. Here's some random rules and crack on.
Minimal law,
Yeah,
minimal rules to go with. Here's a universe where anything's possible. Let's see what you make. And I'm still running on that high of it.
and it's working. Like
I'm enjoying it a lot more. I've not played 40k in ages now.
Snap.
It felt like the game was built for the way I wanted to play.
Yeah. So have you got? I know you're doing the IDNF at the minute. Are you planning anything? Like, have you got stuff kind of bubbling in your mind already for future projects?
I started Araby, so my IDNF, whilst Broken Realms Marathi sort of sparked the idea, I needed various bits for my Araby project that I need the head notes to release for. So obviously their aesthetic is very kind of desert raider kind of vibes.
Yeah. Oh,
so the Seahorse was like, I'm going to get these Ilta Seekers because I need those riders to put on horses for my Araby. What can I do with the mounts? And then I was like, I saw something, Seahorses. And then I made the turtle while I was waiting for them because I'm an impatient person. So I was like, I'll do the turtle first. I'll do a shark now. I'll do a king on foot because I've got the Light of Elfarin in the bits box, barring one head. So IDNF started as my whilst I wait to start my Araby project, and Araby's gotten delayed by a bit because it's when I've completed my IDNF project now.
Yeah. Well, at least you've got that project already like planned, and you know what it is. Like,
I'll start a new bits box just for that project.
Yeah. No, the Blissbard archers are amazing. Like, I can't wait to start painting them. I'm buying a box of them on Saturday without a shadow of a doubt because those models look amazing. And
I mean, the whole range is proper Age of Sigmar level sort of sculpting.
Oh, yeah. And, like, the fact that Slaanesh are getting, well, they say 11 new kits, but one of them's the Lord of Pain that's been out for a little while in the box set, and one of them's the Dread Pageant from Diachasm, so 9 proper kits.
Does that include the fact 2 of them are dual kits?
Yes. You've got the 2 Seahorse kits.
Slick Blades and Bliss Barbs on Exalted Seekers.
Yeah, you've got the 2 elite troops. You've got the Twin Souls, like the part Demon, part Mortals, and then the Painbringers. There is the Lord of Gluttony, which I cannot wait to get painting.
It's a hideous model, beautiful but hideous.
Yeah, it's almost the
Just
summary.
feed me while I lay here.
It's like the summary of 2020 for most people in lockdown.
I'm quarantining up here.
Yeah, you've got Sigvald, you've got the Shard Weaver Speaker or whatever it is, the like wizard.
The one that's definitely not the old Mistweaver, but looking far better.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. The Blissbard Archers, that's 8, and then there's one more, and I can't think. Sigvald, or have I just said that?
You said Sigvald. It's me one I've missed.
That's definitely one. Oh, the Slangors. Yeah. Yep. So
the ones whose claws I need. I shouldn't have forgotten them.
So yeah, to get 9 new kits when only, 2 years ago they got a brand new demon range.
Which looked stunning at the time. And that was, again, the best sculpting at the time was the new Slaanesh Demons. The keeper was fantastic.
Yeah.
And now these new ones, where you go,
take it to
these
the next
ones
level.
are better than those ones.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if things like Shalaxi gets the mortal keyword as well. I never really understood that, why it was only a demon when...
She's clearly in charge.
Yeah.
Okay. They're a demon because she's in charge.
Yeah.
He's the mount. She's in charge.
No, it's like those models are amazing. And then, like I said, we've got the Lumineth second wave coming down the line, and God knows what else. Cursed City and
Broken Realms Techless bringing new lore.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, we've got Soulblight Grave Lords that we know are coming at some point. It's going to be a fun year, I think, for AOS.
It's looking really good, especially the Underworld Warband for Soulblight as well.
Yes, yeah, and the Bone Splitters Warband as well. That looks the one model that they've revealed for that looks rather fun as well. So
all the new sculpts, all the amazing new quality.
Yeah, it's going to be a good year, and I can't wait to see what you do with 99% of them.
It's all coming my way eventually.
Yeah. You may as well just set up a direct standing order with GW and just go, just send me a box of everything as it comes out.
If they hire me, I'll take payment in product. That's the new way.
Well, there you go. You've heard it here first. Who needs a mortgage when I can just get my plastic crack as a part of
I'll be a kept man. I'll just play with my toys. That's the new policy.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for being on the show. It's been a pleasure to chat everything kind of creative and hobby-wise. If they want to find you and they want to see your crazy armies and conversions, how can they find you on Twitter?
I'm not totally sure of my own Twitter name. Give me 2 seconds to work that out.
You're just like Martin. I asked Martin, he's like,
I never tweet myself. So I don't know this thing. It's just not a thing I do.
The thing with Martin, though, his is just his name, and he always forgets it.
Well, mine's the same, because mine's RLR Smith 88.
There you go, RLR Smith 88. And I am at Tales of Wargames on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube. So we've got lots of painting stuff coming on YouTube over the coming weeks, including some of the new Slaanesh. I think I'm going to be painting up Sigvald first, and then probably the Lord of Gluttony as well. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And yeah, we're going to be on Twitch as well, doing some just live streaming, painting and chatting, and maybe going through some rules, lists, ideas, and bits and bobs. But apart from that, Ricki, thank you ever so much for being on today's episode.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll take care, and we'll see you soon.